What if I told you that some of today's most trusted, recognizable and beloved brands, those sitting in your garage, your wardrobe, your kitchen, once served the most brutal regime in modern history? This is not fiction. This is not conspiracy. This is history. Dark, well documented and often forgotten. Today, we peel back the curtain on global corporations that once collaborated with Nazi Germany. Some supplied weapons, some used forced labor, some designed uniforms for SS officers. Others made their fortunes serving Hitler's war machine, and then quietly reinvented themselves into household names. Let's begin this chilling journey through corporate history. Volkswagen. You know it as the brand behind the Beetle, the Golf, and the electric ID series. But did you know it was founded under direct orders from Adolf Hitler? In 1937, Hitler launched the idea of a people's car to mobilize Germany's middle class. But when World War II broke out, that dream turned into a nightmare. Volkswagen's factory, originally meant to produce affordable civilian cars, was repurposed almost overnight into an armory of war. Instead of cars for families, it rolled out Kübelwagens, military jeeps, and Schwimmwagens, amphibious vehicles for the Wehrmacht. More disturbing is what powered this production. Over 15,000 forced laborers, including prisoners of war and concentration camp inmates. By 1944, nearly 60% of Volkswagen's workforce were slaves. The company even had its own subcamp of Auschwitz. After the war, the factory was taken over by the British and eventually revived. Decades later, Volkswagen publicly admitted its role and contributed to a compensation fund for forced labor victims. Today, it's seen as a symbol of German efficiency and family-friendly vehicles, but its origin, a tool of fascism. BMW, today it screams luxury and precision. Back then, it roared with engines built for Nazi warplanes. During the war, BMW stopped producing cars and focused entirely on building aircraft engines for the Luftwaffe. These engines powered planes like the Focke-Wulf FW-190, infamous for bombing Allied cities. To meet the demands of war, BMW used tens of thousands of forced laborers, many of them women and children from occupied countries or Jewish prisoners. They worked in brutal, deadly conditions. The Quandt family, owners of BMW, were Nazi party members who profited immensely during the Third Reich. They stayed quiet about this history for decades, but in the early 2000s, a damning documentary exposed their connections to Nazi crimes. BMW issued a public apology and joined Germany's compensation initiatives. Still, many critics argue the company has never fully acknowledged the depth of its complicity. Today, BMW sells sleek machines to the wealthy and powerful. But it was built, in part, on the broken backs of slaves. Mercedes-Benz, once the proud chariot of Hitler himself, now the definition of automotive class. During the 1930s and 40s, Mercedes-Benz, then Daimler-Benz, was deeply integrated into the Nazi war effort. They produced military trucks, aircraft engines, and key components for German forces. Like others, they also exploited forced labor, tens of thousands of them, taken from concentration camps and war-torn villages across Europe. Mercedes vehicles were not just machines, they were symbols of power for the Nazi elite. Hitler's personal parade cars were custom-made, armored Mercedes-Benz limousines. After the war, Daimler-Benz survived and thrived. By the late 1980s, the company finally began to publicly address its history, funding research and issuing statements of regret. They have since contributed to reparations and education initiatives. Today, Mercedes represents luxury and innovation. But its past is a reminder that prestige can be built on pain. Hugo Boss, the name now drips with fashion and elegance. But its roots lie in the tailored darkness of Nazi uniforms. Yes, Hugo Boss, the man, was a member of the Nazi Party. And from the early 1930s onward, his company manufactured uniforms for the SS, the SA, the Hitler Youth, and the Wehrmacht. These were not just clothes. These were the black coats worn by SS officers marching through Europe, the brown shirts of Hitler's paramilitary forces, the crisp uniforms of death. To meet demand, Hugo Boss employed forced labor, mostly women and prisoners of war, who stitched these garments under threats, beatings, and starvation. After the war, Hugo Boss was fined as an activist and supporter of National Socialism. He lost his voting rights and died just a few years later, but the company survived, rebranded, and rose to global prominence. In 2011, Hugo Boss officially apologized for its Nazi-era actions. Still, the legacy of those uniforms lingers beneath every sharp suit. Siemens, one of the biggest tech and energy companies in the world. But did you know Siemens built factories inside Nazi camps? Siemens provided Nazi Germany with essential components: telephones, control panels, communication devices, and electrical systems. Many of these were used in tanks, submarines, and even gas chambers. Most hauntingly, Siemens operated production facilities within concentration camps like Ravensbrück and Auschwitz. Here, thousands of women, children, and elderly prisoners were forced to manufacture electrical components under appalling conditions. Over 80,000 forced laborers worked for Siemens during the war. For decades, Siemens remained quiet about its wartime past. But starting in the 1990s, it began acknowledging its role and contributing to compensation efforts. Today, it supports Holocaust remembrance initiatives and educational programs. Still, for many survivors, the pain remains electrified. Bayer, the pharmaceutical giant behind aspirin. But once part of a conglomerate that made Zyklon B, the gas used to kill millions. During the Nazi era, Bayer was part of the IG Farben conglomerate, a chemical empire that worked hand in hand with the regime. IG Farben built and operated a massive factory next to Auschwitz, known as Monowitz or Auschwitz III. There, tens of thousands of Jewish and Polish prisoners were forced to produce synthetic rubber and fuel. Most died from overwork, disease, or were sent to gas chambers once they were no longer useful. Worse yet, Bayer scientists were implicated in human experimentation on prisoners. These so-called tests often ended in death. After the war, IG Farben was broken up by the Allies. Bayer re-emerged as a standalone brand and slowly regained global status. In recent decades, the company has expressed regret and supported compensation efforts. Still, the fact remains, a company that now produces medicine once helped engineer mass murder. Ford, an American icon, but one with a troubling Nazi connection. Before the US entered World War II, Ford's German subsidiary, Ford Werke, supplied vehicles to Hitler's army. The company continued operations in Nazi Germany even after war was declared, maintaining its presence through legal loopholes and German management. More troubling, Henry Ford himself was an outspoken anti-Semite. His writings were admired by Hitler, who even awarded Ford a Nazi medal in 1938. During the war, Ford's factories in Germany used forced labor. The company's exact level of involvement remains debated, but the paper trail is damning. Though Ford later claimed ignorance, lawsuits and historical investigations paint a different picture. In the 2000s, Ford paid into Germany's Holocaust Compensation Fund, though it never offered a formal apology. From American patriotism to Nazi supply chains, Ford's legacy is more complicated than it seems. Coca-Cola, refreshing, innocent, everywhere, and a surprising survivor in Hitler's Germany. When Waldauwega II erupted, Coca-Cola's German branch found itself in a bind. With supply routes cut off, the company couldn't get its signature syrup. So, the German team got creative. They invented a new drink, one made from fruit scraps, whey, and whatever was available. They named it Fanta. Yes, Fanta was born in Nazi Germany, marketed to German youth and consumed by civilians and soldiers alike. Coca-Cola's operations in Nazi Germany tried to maintain political neutrality, but internal documents show that the company adapted to survive, including advertising with Nazi imagery. After the war, Coca-Cola regained control of its German branch and distanced itself from the Fanta origin story. Today, Fanta is one of its best-selling brands. From Nazi workaround to global fun drink, Fanta's origin story is anything but sweet. Kodak, famous for capturing memories. But during the war, it helped build weapons. Kodak's German factories didn't just produce film. They also manufactured fuses and military components used by the Nazis. Some of these factories employed forced labor. Even as an American company, Kodak continued operations in Germany through a legal gray area, transferring ownership temporarily to avoid wartime restrictions. Kodak's role was less visible, but no less real. After the war, the company faced no real consequences and remained silent on the issue. It's a dark irony. Kodak helped document the Holocaust while also profiting from the regime behind it. IKEA, affordable furniture for all, founded by a Nazi sympathizer. IKEA itself did not collaborate with the Nazi regime, but its founder, Ingvar Kamprad, was a vocal supporter of a pro-Nazi Swedish movement during World War II. He befriended fascist leaders and attended meetings well into his early 20s. Kamprad later called it the greatest mistake of my life. IKEA eventually issued statements distancing the company from its founder's political past. No forced labor, no weapons. But the fact remains, one of the world's most democratic and diverse brands was born in the mind of a man who once admired Hitler. From far-right sympathizer to symbol of cozy minimalism, IKEA's story is one of reinvention. Renault, France's national pride. But during the war, it built trucks for the enemy. When Germany occupied France, Renault's founder, Louis Renault, agreed to produce military vehicles for the Nazis. He did it to keep his factories running, but it was seen as betrayal by many. After the war, Louis Renault was arrested and died in prison under mysterious circumstances. The French government seized and nationalized the company, stripping his family of control. Renault has never fully rehabilitated his legacy, and the company remains one of the rare cases where wartime collaboration resulted in total loss. From collaboration to confiscation, Renault's story is a cautionary tale of compromise under tyranny. These are just some of the brands that built their empires with Nazi Germany as a customer, an enabler, or a partner. Some participated willingly, others out of fear, some used slave labor, some built weapons, some sold soda, but all of them profited while millions suffered. And today, we still wear them, drive them, drink them, trust them. So what do we do with this knowledge? Because history has a price, and some companies build fortunes paying it in human lives.